So students of year 7, let's continue our lesson. The last question was, how do you think friction helps us when we walk? The answer is, it prevents us from sliding. You know, friction helps any object from sliding. So it helps us when we walk. It prevents us from sliding. Okay. Now, friction also acts on objects that move through air. This force is called air resistance. So any object is moving and the air hits this object, so there is a force is exerted on this object named by air resistance. For example, look at this man. Okay, so when he falls down, there is a force exerted on the man called air resistance. So friction also acts on objects that move through air. This force is called air resistance. Also, water resistance also acts on object moving in water. So any object moving inside the water, okay, there is a force acting on this object called water resistance. So water resistance and air resistance, they are similar. How an object who moves through the air, this object will undergoes a force called air resistance, and if there is an object moving through water, it will undergo a force called water resistance. So air resistance and water resistance are also called drag. So both, they are also called drag. Why they called drag? Because they slow the object moving in through down. So they slow the object moving through it. Okay. Now, what is the upthrust? The upthrust is a force that acts on object floating in air or water. So if we have an object floating on water, for example, it's a liquid, it's a kind of fluid, okay? So this force, this boat undergoes two forces: the weight of the boat, which is a force of gravity or gravitational force, and the upthrust of water. So this upthrust, when we have upthrust, we have upthrust when any object floats on the body, so on the water. So the object will push downward and the water will exert a force on this object is upward. So the upward is upthrust and the downward is the weight. So it pushes the object upward. So upthrust, I will repeat, upthrust is a force that acts on an object floating in air or water. Also air, the same, because the upthrust exerted when the object is floating in any kind of fluid, through any kind of fluid. So draw an arrow to show the direction of the upthrust on the balloon. I will help you to draw it. It's from the center and going upward, okay, and the gravitational force is going downward, but the upthrust is going vertically upward. Now the tension. When we have tension, or how we know that there is tension? What is the tension force? First of all, if you pull something with a rope, string, whatever, wire, all of it, if you pull something with a rope, there is a force in the rope called tension. So what is the tension force? It's the force done by the rope on the object. So what is the force? It's the force done by a string, wire, spring, even spring, okay, springs, tension, any wire, okay. So there is a force called tension, any wire. Now the size of the force, how we measure the size of the force? The size of the force can be measured using an instrument called force meter, such as the spring balance. Okay, so any instrument that measures the force is called force meter, and one of those instruments, one of them called spring balance. Let's see the spring balance. We have in it when we have a lot of this spring balance in our school and the lab. So also the unit of force is in Newton. Forces are measured in units called Newton. So what is the unit of the force? Newton. Yani if you are going to measure the force, for example, you measured 100 what? 100 kilogram, kilometer, meter, Newton. Which unit? For the force, we use Newton as a unit. So forces are measured in unit called Newton. So what is the instrument used to measure the force? It's the spring balance. What is the unit that we measure the force? It's Newton. So there is a small summary. So what is the force? It's a push or a pull. What it can be? What can do? It move a static object, stop an object, changing the direction. This is the effects. Okay. Then the push or a pull. There are a lot of types like friction, gravity, magnet, electrostatic, blah 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 blah. Thrust, drag, air resistance, water resistance. A lot of forces. So I finished the lesson, but I want to do a small revision about the forces. So we have the first force is the gravitational force, which is done by all the objects. Okay, so any object, it has the gravitational force, or called force of gravity or weight of an object. The second force is the electrostatic force. It happens when two objects are totally charged. Okay, if the object is positive and negative, they are unlike a charge, they will attract. If they are like a charge, they will repel. The third force is the magnetic force. Okay, and the magnet attract the steel, iron, nickel, and cobalt. Also, the two magnets can attract and can repel. It repel when it's the same pole, and it attract when it's the different poles. Now there is this gravitational force, electrostatics, magnetic force. They are non-contact force. They are forces acting from a distance without touching. Sorry. Okay, this is okay. Also, friction is an example of a contact force. It acts when object slides across the surface. Of course, we said that we have two conditions for the friction. The first condition is that the two objects is in contact with each other, and one of them is in motion. Okay, and there is a force called air resistance when any object moves through the air. There is a force called water resistance when any object moves through the water, and there is a force called upthrust force when any object moves floats through a fluid, liquid or gas. It have no problem. Tension, it's the force done by a wire, spring, string, rope, whatever. And finally, the instrument used to measure the force is called force meter, such as the spring balance, and the unit that the force measured by is Newton. So that's everything for today. Please go ahead and solve the classwork in the classwork page. Thank you so much.